Hello and welcome to another edition of the Spare Time Podcast with me, Nigel Marston, and him, Ben Marston, otherwise known as TenPinBen.
It's been a long time. It has been a long time.
It does seem a while, doesn't it? Right. Now, our guest tonight is somebody that if you've been in any sort of youth bowling in the UK in the last 20 to 30 years, you're going to know. And it's only sort of half of the guest, if you like, because there's half of the guest is missing because I say these two people as one because they're always there together and it's a double act. So we'd like to welcome to the Spare Time Podcast, Brian Parker.
Good evening.
Welcome, Brian. Thanks very much for coming on. It's been much appreciated. Now, one thing that I've often wondered is how did you get into bowling in the first place?
Long story. About 35 years ago, round about 1990-ish, Jill was working in Firth Park Bowl at Sheffield. I don't know if you remember that. I don't know if it was closed that before Ben started.
Yeah, probably.
And the manager then, the late Bruce Ford, asked me if I wanted to start a tournament up for juniors because we got a couple of teams there and there weren't many junior tournaments about at that time. So the Sheffield Junior Combination Trios started and went from there.
So did you actually bowl yourself when you were there, or?
Oh yes, yeah, I bowled. Oh crikey! Up to last year, I stopped bowling last year.
Yeah.
So I got that bad. I got nearly as bad as Ben, so I thought I'd pack up.
Well, you can't be any worse than me. I stopped bowling as well because I was just getting worse and worse and worse.
He was sick of losing every week.
Yeah. So in your bowling career, tournaments aside, in your bowling career, what did that look like?
It was more local bowling, local leagues. I bowled for when we moved down to Devon in '98. I started bowling with Devon seniors, and Jill started bowling with Devon seniors, and had a few years at counties. But apart from that, like I say, it was just local tournaments, local leagues. I got sort of 190-ish average at one time. But apart from that, no superstardom.
190 is my handicap, so you're doing better than me. So that was back in Sheffield and all those years ago. So then how did the tournaments come about?
Well, like I said, we were asked to run one, and we were asked to run a junior one. And as I said, we thought about what we could run, and a handicap combination trios was the first one that we started, as I said, and it was quite successful. With more local teams from places like Leeds and LA Leeds, what used to be open at that time, used to come. Manchester, Liverpool. The late Jim Misson used to bring his teams over from Liverpool, and as I say, we're quite successful running in February, and it stood for maybe 3 years, and then the NAYBC, as it was then, came to us and asked us if we would like to use it or they would like to use it, should I say, as an England ranking event. So we changed it then to North of England Open.
I mean, that was a good accolade for you that you created a tournament that would been recognised by the BTBA for something like that. Yeah.
It was the start of a long road, as you can understand, Nigel. 35 years. It's the 35th year this year of running tournaments.
And I think, for me, speaking from personal experience, I mean, when Ben first started, his first couple of tournaments was a local ones up here in Washington. But I think his first nationals was, I remember his first nationals was at Dunstable. And I don't know who it was who was running at the time because I never saw them again. But I remember that was my first experience of the nationals, or indeed of a tournament outside the Northeast. And there was one particular occasion when I videoed Ben taking a shot and he missed as usual. So I deleted the video, but the person who was one of the people who was running the event came over to us and sort of interrogated me as to what I was videoing and why I was videoing, and they wanted to see it and that sort of thing. And I thought, well, this is all very sort of oppressive, and I thought this is the way tournaments are. I'm not sure if I'm going to like this, but I don't know who they were. They disappeared soon after it. Then we went to one of your tournaments, and it was just completely different. The whole atmosphere was different. It was, you were approachable. Everybody was happy. It wasn't just sort of almost like somebody staring over your shoulder to see if you put a foot wrong. And how do you create that atmosphere where you make the event fun and yet it's still a serious event?
The thing with me, Nigel, years before I started bowling, I used to be a football referee, and I was always told by a lot of good referees, a lot of what then was the first division, not now is the Premier Division, that you don't demand respect, you earn respect. And I put that to everything. I try and do it on the kids' level. To my mind, the kids have got enough discipline, if you like, at schools during the week. And where there's got to be a certain amount of discipline in the bowling, also, there's got to be fun. And that's the main word, the fun. And I try and bring that to it. I mean, whether I do or not, it is another matter, but as far as I'm concerned, we do.
Well, yeah, I think without doubt you definitely do. I mean, in from my perspective, in terms of Ben, you and Jill have been a key player in getting Ben to where he's got to now, because I think without the tournaments that you and Jill run, there's no way that Ben would be doing some of the things that he is now. So I see you and Jill as being key to that. I don't know what you think about it.
I think every time I go and bowl an event, it's 6 games of me getting laughed at.
By who?
Yeah.
Oh, by me.
By everyone. I mean, I sit there and my dad went, I'm sick of it. We were bowling the British Youth Team Open, and my dad said to me, sick of filming this. Every time I film you miss. I get laughed at I get the mic taken out of me by him on the podcast.
Waste of a battery.
Get the mic taken out of it by you.
Yeah, but do you feel more relaxed than at home by doing that?
Well, it's either laugh or cry, innit? So
yes, it is, mate. You're right.
I think it's one of those where you kind of, no matter how someone's bowling, they'll see you come over, and you kind of know it because you've been around so long, and you know everyone, and everyone knows you, and you kind of just match other people's energy. Like if I'm bowling good, you're like, oh, he's bowling well for once. So if I'm bowling bad, you'll laugh at me, but nothing that no one else in bowling doesn't do. Now, like I said, you have been around bowling for a long time. I'm not sure how old these bowlers are, so I don't know if you've actually done any events where they were there. So people like Richie Teese, Don Barrett, Stu Williams, I don't know if you were doing youth events then.
I was going to say, when we came down to Torquay, Jill came down as manager at Torquay Bowl, and we started the Torquay Trios, as it was then. It changed to the doubles. But the first 2 years was run by a team with Don Barrett in it. And the Teases have been to tournaments what I've run. There's quite a few of them. Just trying to think of the girl's name who's in America now.
Is he?
Pro. Sorry?
Oh, Verity.
Verity, yeah. Verity used to come to my tournaments. Izzy Allen did. It's and Izzy Allen came to, I think mine were one of the first tournaments that Izzy bowled in at Sheffield. Because she's on the I don't know if you've seen that trophy I give for the encouragement award, the big one. Well, Izzy's on there, and there's 1 or 2 big names on there that from years gone by.
Mm-hmm. So obviously you've been about bowling for a while. You've seen thousands of bowlers come, start bowling, disappear, leave, go too old. But obviously, some of them like Verity, like Richie, like Dom, they ended up going to places like the PBA or over to America to bowl. Do you notice in a bowler when you think they've got potential? Is that like something you pick up on? Or?
I notice when bowlers are getting better and better, don't get me wrong, but I never look at people and think, oh, they could be a professional bowler. I treat everybody, irrespective, Ben, as you know yourself, exactly the same. Whether they've got a 25 average or a 225 average, I try and treat everybody and give everybody the same enjoyment.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's fair. Yeah, I can see that whenever we're doing an event, you always, you treat everyone fairly. You're pretty fair in how you deal with stuff, and a lot of people respect you for that. But is there any sort of moment that stands out to you since you've been doing, youth events and stuff? Is there any moment that's kind of like funny or anything like
that? Yeah, watching you bowl for one. No, no, there's not. Over years, I can't think. A young lad from Liverpool had his first 300, and the first 300 that we'd had at any of our tournaments was at Sheffield, and I can't think of his name. Chris. Anyway, but he had his first 300 there. That's one of the standout moments. But apart from that, every tournament, I wouldn't say it blends into one, if you know what I mean, Ben. You know what I mean? But there's no real. So, they were at Bowlers Club last time we were at Bowlers Club, and we had fire alarm went off at Mansfield, and everybody traipsed out into the car park, and then the traipsed back in 5 minutes later to find out it was the dishwasher that had set the alarm off in the upstairs bar. But that's, but things like that are few and far between. I can't remember no really funny anecdotes I can turn to you, mate. I'm sorry about that. I'm a boring old sod.
I do remember one. It was in not the new gun football, but the old one, and the ball return on the far right lane practically caught fire while we were all bowling.
Oh, yeah. I won't call that a funny moment, but I know what you mean. I know what you mean. On lane 19 and 20. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I can remember that one, mate. Yeah.
Normally, Brian, you're normally with Jill. Jill's your wife. For those who watching who doesn't know that, what would you describe Jill's role as in your journey to where you've got to now?
Well, everybody calls her the boss. If you speak to Tracy will tell you she must be obeyed. When she says, "Oh," everybody jumps. Jill's the driving force behind it all. I'm the if you excuse this expression, I'm the pretty face at the front. Jill's the driving force at the back of it. We both work very hard to get these things done and get them running. That's why they run so good. Well, we think they run good anyway.
I mean, Jill's always in the background there on the laptop, logging all the scores and that sort of thing. I mean, I haven't actually seen what she puts on the screen. I mean, I know it's a spreadsheet, but how does all that work? Is it a spreadsheet you designed? Have you had it designed for you? Did Jill make it, or what?
We had the one we used for the nationals. The one we used to use for the north of England was an access thing that a bloke from Sunderland gave me, and I can't think of his name. Years and years and years ago, when we first started it, he gave me this one. But most of the tournaments, the Bowlers Club, British Youth Team Open, the one next weekend at Stroud, they're all done. I make them up myself on Excel.
Yeah.
I don't know how Excel works when they do these fancy things where they click a button at top and it all moves everything. Everything's done manually on ours because I'm not that clever. It needs people like Ben who's supposed to be smart to work them things out.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of work involved with that. They're trying to get all the scores right, and I mean, how often? And it must have happened over all the years. How often do mistakes happen with the scoring? Because certainly in all the years that I've seen in your tournaments, I've never seen it happen.
I think, and I'm not trying to show off here, but I think if we've had 2 or 3 at the most where it's made any difference, if we've made any mistakes, we've tend to have picked them up straight away. You know what I mean? No, it's sorted straight away. We've had 2 or 3 where it might have gone through and somebody's rung us up and said, excuse me, but so-and-so had this score. And 9 times out of 10, you'll find that it's them that's put the wrong score down. You know.
How do you handle a situation like that when somebody put the wrong score down, and if the correct score actually changes positions?
Very diplomatically. Point is, once the scores are out, it does say on every entry form, if you notice, that complaints have got to be in within 72 hours or before the presentation. And like I said, the odd ones we've had, people they've rung me up, we've spoke to them, boom, end of story. It's sorted. No arguments, no falling out. There was one bloke, and we're talking back to the early days of the trios from Brierley Hill, we put the wrong score down, or he said we put the wrong score down, and he was going to take it to the BTBA, he was going to take it to Parliament, you know, where he was going off because of this mistake. And it wasn't a mistake in the end. It was him that had done it wrong, and everything was okay. But that was the only one where really people were going to take it here, there, and everywhere. Do you know what I mean? It's been great. Touch wood. Up to now, it's been all right, mate.
I can imagine it's a bit of a challenge because I've seen some of the writing, especially Ben's writing, because I can't make head or tail of it, and my writing's horrible as well. But I've often got to try and correct some of his numbers to make them look like.
Well, you know when you're down at Stroud, don't you?
Yeah.
Have a word with Jill when you see her about amount of times that she has to take stuff back and say, is that a 2? Is that a 6? Is that, you know what I mean? It's some of the kids' writing is terrible.
I think she's only done that to me once or twice, I think, to be fair. So
she has only once or twice, yeah.
Normally because I've corrected before the sheet goes in.
Usually because you do my scores.
Yeah, well, sometimes I do, not all the time, depending on who's got the pen and that sort of thing. Yeah, exactly. Mobile wallet and bag carrier.
Obviously, there's not just you and Jill in the competitions. Mick is, he's about a few competitions. How and where did Mick come into it, and how important is Mick's role?
Mick's very important. Is my right hand man. We've worked together that many years, about 30 years now, so that we don't have to say to each other, "Are you doing this? Are you doing that?" We just do it. In fact, we're like an old married couple, like me and bloody Jill. That's how bad it is. But there's been a lot of people. I mean, when we first started at Firth Park, we didn't have a computer then. Everything was done by hand. And there was, can you remember Fiona Banks, who used to be a bowler, Finny Banks? Well, her mother, Elaine, her dad, Ian, they all used to help collecting scores in, collating the scores. It was all done on a piece of paper and stuck up on wall, that. And then Pete Simmons from Huddersfield, one at coaches at Huddersfield, he was my assistant tournament manager for the first 3 or 4 years, and then he didn't want to do it. So Mick was the secretary of Firth Park YBC, which is now Kimberworth YBC. And Mick he sort of drifted into the job, and he's been there ever since. He's a good lad.
Yeah, we've known Mick for a long time. He's, we saw him at one of the first tournaments that you were operating, and then he keeps on popping up every now and again since then. So, it's one of these faces who, has always been there and is probably always going to be around.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you go all over the country doing these tournaments, and often tournaments are over 2 weekends. You live at the bottom end of the country in Torquay, and the tournaments are always north. So you must do a fair bit of traveling. How many miles a year do you do traveling backwards and forwards to tournaments?
I don't know. I'm not worried. So we were talking about this the other day, about traveling and about expenses and about this, that, and other. And we said if we were to sit down and work out over the 30 odd years that we've been running it, how much this has cost us, I think we would turn around and say we're not doing it again. Do you know what I mean? But it's not so much thing. But we do. I'm just trying to think. We must do 10,000 miles a year. You know, we must do.
Yeah, and you must have stayed in every premier in the country, have you?
No, we're not bad. We've started using travel lodges now, because travel lodges they're getting just as good as Premier Inns now.
Yeah, they've improved a lot of late. A lot of them have been refurbished, so they're not quite what they used to be. But we've noticed they are starting to get better.
Yeah.
I think I'm pretty sure we're up to now. We have we've been in every service station on the motorways in England. I'm pretty convinced I can name them all in order now.
Yeah. What service stations?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been in quite a few.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously, when you first started doing this, you were still working, and then obviously at some point you retired. So I mean, it must have been easy to do it once you retired, because finishing work on a Friday and having to get yourself to some Premier in the middle of nowhere, probably late at night for the tournament starting early the next morning. I mean, that's pretty tough going.
Yeah, it was. I mean, we that's something else we spoke about, that we don't know really when we look at it how we've done it. Because when we used to go to Scunthorpe, we used to have that. It was the 4s and the 5s tournament there, the old North of England tournament, and we'd finished that tournament maybe 6:30, 7 o'clock at night, and then we'd have to drive back down to Torquay, another 6 hours travel, and then we'd be up at 6 o'clock next morning for work. It is a lot easier. It's a lot easier as well, because there's a hell of a lot of pit work that people don't see behind the scenes. If you don't prepare properly, then it's not going to work right in the end.
So you talk about, obviously, there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that people don't know about. And obviously, from my perspective, it's, you do your entry form, you turn up and you bowl. But what sort of planning and preparation goes on from your end to get a competition?
Right. Well, obviously, we send out, the entry forms go out, or it goes on my website. I get the entries back in. Then I have to chase the money. Have you paid, by the way, yet, Mr. Master, for this weekend? No. Yeah, we've got to chase the money, sometimes the entry forms, and then we've got to sit down, put them onto the computer, onto the Excel spreadsheet. Then we've got to do the score sheets. Then Jill has to transfer it onto her, because I do it on my PC. Jill then transfers it onto her laptop. And then we travel to the tournament, and then the tournament gets done. I mean, that the normal tournament is not so bad. When it comes to things like the Nationals, last year, we were 3 weeks before the National, nearly every day, entering, because there's that many, entering names into the computer, etc., etc. That is a big tournament. Mm-hmm. That's a lot to do.
So obviously, you get your entry forms and stuff like that, but how do you figure out where you're going to do a competition, and how do you go about arranging that?
Well, there's not many people that want you now, Ben. There's not many centres that want you. And as you've known yourself, these centres are getting smaller and smaller and smaller. They're all the independents. So we've got as ones that we use, like Mansfield, we use quite a bit. We started with Ashby this year, a 12-lane centre at Scunthorpe that we were using for the North of England Diamond Trios this year in July. They treated us really well, and you've got to go where they look after you. Mm-hmm. Stroud's another one that's an independent centre, but there's not many of them about, mate.
So, because I remember when I started, you were in Nottingham, you were in Stroud, you were in all sorts of places, and now it feels like I've been at Dunstable and Mansfield and Stroud 60 times a season.
I know exactly what you're saying, mate, and we wish we could take the Nationals away from Dunstable. Not that we don't like Dunstable, right? But we could move it somewhere a bit further north, so that you people haven't got as far to travel.
That's
to try and be fair. Do you know what I mean, mate? That's the only thing. But there is nobody. No, Nottingham now. Forget about Nottingham. You can't use Nottingham.
Yeah, Nottingham. They put I think if I remember rightly, it was COVID where they They put LEDs and all that downstairs, and
Yeah.
then COVID happened. They just put it upstairs as well. So I mean, I never liked Nottingham. I never bowled well there, so I'm not too bothered. The only thing that I don't like is the stairs in Mansfield. They are dreadful.
Oi, tell me about it.
So
I know
I'm
exactly what you're saying.
I'm sick of carrying bowling balls.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. We have to carry our stuff up and back down. But yeah, the stairs are bad. But the point is, where else can you go? Because people now, they were sent to this year, I'll not mention any names, but sent to this year, wanted to charge us £5.50 a game. You know, and that obviously has got to be passed on to the bowler. So when you're bowling 6 games, then you put a prize fund on top of that and expenses on top of that, you know, it's getting silly.
Mm-hmm.
It's getting silly. And people like Mansfield, with them having the upstairs floor, which they can give us, and it doesn't affect their walking trade, right? Then we can get it at a decent price.
Well, what do you put it down to that so few centres want tournaments to be played at their premises?
Because we want the centres at their busiest times, which are the weekends. We want cheaper rates than, I mean, if we pay £4.50 a game to play, which is a regular type of thing, we pay £4.50 a game. They can get £7-8 a game, you know, from Joe Public, and then we want cheaper food. We want to go in earlier to get started earlier, so they've got to put staff on earlier. So that is a lot of reasons why people don't want us, Nigel. You know what I mean? It's costing them money, if you like.
Yeah. I mean, it just seems to be that, you know, they are a very, very small number of centres around the country that we keep on, you know, being going to on a regular basis. So it's a bit of a shame. I mean, I think what do you think needs doing in the UK to raise the awareness of the sport of bowling? Because I know we had a conversation some time ago when you were telling me that since COVID, the number of youth bowlers had dropped quite dramatically. I just assumed that everybody who was a youth bowler before COVID pretty much would come back after COVID, but that didn't quite happen, did it?
No, it didn't. Look, hopefully, things are going on the up. You know, things are lifting. There's myself and Jill, Stephen Toop, the lovely Tracy Robertson, who you know yourself, and Stuart Watson, who've worked very hard to get it as it is. And I'll tell you now that the classic singles that's at Altrincham, I think you've got your name down for it, Ben, haven't you? In fact, I think your mum's paid for it, so you're all right. I'll let you go to that one. We've got over 100 entries, and that's brilliant because we've been going along with maybe not full squads, nowhere near full squads, and I don't know how do we get them back. You know, we've tried. We're trying to get them back by introducing things like that VHS and the team challenge and different things for them.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't go out and force people to come in.
That's true. I mean, one thing that I have done, and obviously it doesn't happen. I've never seen it happen at the BTBA, so I don't know if it has previously. But I mean, me personally, I'm really impatient, as you know. I hate bowling team events. But one event that I really do like bowling, I love bowling Baker. Do you reckon maybe one day we could do like a Baker tournament?
We are looking at things like that. Do you know what I mean? We are looking at trying to get things, different formats, maybe put in, like they're doing at Shipley, a full handicap tournament on. Do you know what I mean? Not the same as that, but similar to that. Baker system, yeah, that's good. Also, there's things like Scotch doubles. You know, but the only thing with Baker system and Scotch doubles, I don't think you could count that towards your tour, because you've got to have full games. Are you with me?
Yeah.
Then, which would make it hard to go against your thing. But yeah, I would be prepared to put something on like a Baker system one. It would be good fun.
When I bowled,
go on.
When I bowled in France, it was like it brought a lot of. I mean, I was put with a team of people that spoke French, and I didn't speak a word of French, but
We don't speak English.
Exactly. But like when you're taking one shot and you've got to cover the person that might have just missed, it brings a lot of people together where a normal event wouldn't. So if you're bowling doubles and someone misses, oh well, whatever, but I don't care. I'm bowling my game. Where when your score is their score,
I know exactly what you mean, mate. I used to do it years ago. You won't remember it. There was a competition called the Silk Cup for adults, and that was Baker system, a lot of it. And I used to enjoy bowling Baker system. We'd have to see how we did it, but it would be worth having a look at, mate.
What do you think? Just come back to my earlier question. What do you think is needed in the UK to raise the awareness of the sport of bowling? Because in the UK, it's seen more as a hobby or something you do in your spare time, whereas in the States, it's a totally different sort of thing. I mean, when Ben bowled in Vegas a couple of years ago, and he made some friends, and I turned on Bowl TV at the weekend, and there was one of the boys that he bowled in Vegas with, winning the PBA Junior, then playing a doubles game with EJ Tackett. We don't get that in the UK. Why do you think that is?
Well, we haven't got a professional scene in the UK, and I don't think, personally, I don't think there's enough advertising of the sport. Whatever it's not classed as a sport, which, all right, we classed as a sport, but everybody else classes it as a pastime. Do you know what I mean? As a leisure activity. Whatever it's not took seriously as a sport, we're fighting a losing battle, I think, Nigel.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's the public's perception of what it is, and something I've mentioned several times before is you look at something like darts, and darts are a relatively simple game in comparison to bowling, and yet they can get massive television coverage and hundreds of people going on to watch them. And I mean, I suppose that the logistics of darts are easier because you put a board on a wall somewhere, a load of tables, and a few pints of beer, and you can do that virtually anywhere. Where you can't do that with bowling, and with bowling is not easy to watch because there's not really any facilities for spectators in the UK.
Well, it's if you're not like you with Ben and like me when my kids were bowling and when I were bowling, I liked watching bowling. Jill can't stand watching bowling. She used to love bowling, but she don't like watching it. And it is, you've got to admit, if you don't understand the scoring and you don't understand the game, it can be very boring just stood there watching. And I know America brought the new scoring system in, didn't they? But have they dropped that off? Because I haven't heard nothing about it lately. A couple of years back, they brought a new scoring system in, and like I said, I don't know whether it's still there or whether it's dropped off or what.
I don't. I've never heard of it being around since, so I think they just dropped it off. I mean, there is some other people. I mean, there's like obviously professional bowlers who have YouTube channels. They do things like that to maybe encourage people to watch bowling to the end and stuff. I mean, Darren Tang, for one, he's got something in his videos called at the end of the 10th frame. So say if you're bowling and you're bowling against somebody and you're down by 20 pins or whatever and you're losing, if you strike in the 10th, you can keep bowling until you don't strike. I mean, little things like that, obviously for fun, encourage people to watch bowling,
Yeah, I agree. But it's people such as yourself that's doing these podcasts, Ben, that's got to come up with things like that and see if they're viable. You know what I mean? Put them to BTBA, see if they're viable. See if they're willing to run with something like that.
Do you watch a PBA yourself, Brian?
I don't, mate. No.
No.
I get banned from it because, one thing, I haven't got Sky. Another thing is, like I said, Jill don't like watching bowling.
I'll be honest with you, it's not something that I ever thought of watching before Ben started the bowl. Although, I started the bowl probably about 35 years ago as well. And we used to go to a local bowling centre, which unfortunately isn't there now. It was a really good one at 32 lanes. It's now a Tesco, and
is that Sunderland?
Fairly late on a Sunday night, about 10 o'clock or something like that, and most of the lanes were empty. So on the screens, they used to have professional bowling on the screens just to fill the screens in. So while I was waiting to be shot, I used to watch these screens, and I was always intrigued by what was going on. I knew nothing about it. I didn't know what I was watching. I didn't know who I was watching or anything. But it was just something intriguing about it. And you'd see a shot of the audience, and it would say, Bill's auntie who was sitting in the audience. I just thought it was really strange because you didn't see that in any other sport. So
yeah,
I suppose it planted the seed there for me that there was something interesting in watching bowling. And I don't watch it all the time, but I've got a bowl TV subscription, and put it on if there's going to be a tournament on. I will put it on and watch some of it, and watch the as I say, the weekend when Ben's friend was winning the PBA Junior. So I think that's good. But to watch bowling, you've got to have something like a bowl TV subscription. You can't turn on BBC One and watch 10-pin bowling, and I think that's a bit of a shame.
Not how the Weber Cup is. The Weber Cup was the thing we had at that.
I'm going to say there's plenty of reality television that would be a lot better with bowling on instead of reality television, wouldn't it?
I'm going to say, obviously, like you said, you've been around bowling for a long, long time. And through that, you've been nominated and won numerous awards. The Chairman's Award. I think you've won that a few times. And, but most recently, you and Jill got inducted to the BTB Hall of Fame. What does it mean to you when you get nominated for these awards and win them?
That meant a lot. I was very honoured. We were both very honoured to get that. It shows that over the years we've been doing something right. And it shows that we have got the respect of a lot of people. A lot of people don't like us, but there's more people like us that don't. But we were very honoured to get that, mate. It came as a big surprise, I can tell you.
Well, for me, I think if anybody's going to be in the Hall of Fame for 10-pin bowling in the UK, it's got to be you and Jill, because you are the linchpin of youth bowling in the UK. There's no doubt about that, in my opinion, definitely.
Thanks for saying that, Nigel. It's appreciated, but we just take it as we've always took it, and we enjoy it. And whenever we enjoy it, we'll keep doing it. And
another good thing I like about your tournaments is that you can always access the scores easily. For some of the tournaments, it's impossible to find out where you see what the scores are. But your website, bptournaments.co.uk, is it? .org.uk.
Yeah.
You can just go onto your website. It's quite clear to see. You can see the tournament. You can see the squadding list. You can see the results. It's very, very straightforward. Where a lot of tournaments, I've got to ask him, or you need a degree in computer science to be able to find the scores. But you make that side of them. You make it simple and easy to follow.
Well, that's just like me. I like to make it simple, just like me. We got that website up and running, and it's the best thing we did, because we get home from a tournament on a Monday, and then the first thing I do is I put the scores on. So the scores are always online on a Monday night for people to look at, and then they can come back to me. And like you, with tournaments before, when my kids used to bowl in them, it was a case of you couldn't find results. You couldn't find any results anywhere. So we try to do it as good as we can. And if it works, if you say it's all right, then fair enough. Then I'm happy with that.
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned your kids. I mean, I know you've got a son who bowls in the ESBT.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
John.
Is that the only one of your offspring that bowls, or have you got more?
Yeah, my daughter Carol used to bowl, but she packed up years ago. And John when we moved down here, packed up for a while, and then he's gone back on. He's doing ESBT now, and he's enjoying it. He bowled yesterday in that generation trios at Stroud and just missed out on qualifying. They finished 11th and top 10 qualified, but he's doing well.
Yeah, I mean ESBT is a tough set of tournaments because there's some fantastic players in there.
Yeah. He did well at the first one at Stroud this year. I mean, he had a 298 in that and completely, if you excuse the phrase, balls up the last ball of the game. But yeah, they are. I've never bowled on one, so I can't say, Nigel. But everybody tells me that they are tough conditions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean Lee Chatfield, who runs them, he's like the adult version of you and Jill. You know, I mean his tournaments are also good. You know, when Ben's on ESBT a few times, and you know he's approachable. He makes it fun, and you know, so he's doing the adult side, and you doing the youth side.
Well, Lee used to come has been to my tournaments before. I've known Lee from when he was a junior bowler. You know, I've known him for years, and I get on with Lee very well. In fact, it was Lee that put me forward for the Chairman's Award for BTBA in 2000. Not in 2000, in 1998 when I got it. 2000, I don't know. Whenever I got it anyway.
Yeah. How many awards have you got now? Because it must be quite a few between the two of you.
Well, we got the NAYBC Chairman's Award in 2000. Jill got that in 21, I think, just before the pandemic. And then in 2018, I got the BTBA Chairman's Award for services when it should have gone to both of us, but it only went to me. And like I said, last year we were honoured to be inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I mean that's a great achievement because there's not too many people get inducted into the Hall of Fame at all, is there?
Well, I've looked at it, and there's only one a year. Well, there's a male, a female, excuse me, and one for services every year, isn't there? And we were lucky to get that one for services. You know, it's good.
Yeah,
we're good.
Were you going to say something?
I was, yeah. Okay. So, you know, are you just going to stick with youth events, or have you got any ambition to maybe go into adult events at any point, or?
No, I'm happy where I am. I mean, the last couple of years, we've been honoured to be asked to do the British Transplant Games, TenPinBen bowling, and we did the European Transplant Games either last year or the year before at Oxford, and last year we were asked to do the World Blind Games in Birmingham, which was an honour to do that. That certainly makes you think about things, you know, when you see blind people bowling, people that are completely blind bowling. You know, we've been asked to do the European leg of that this year when it comes off. So where that'll be or when, I don't know.
So, you know, going back to what I said previously, like you've seen a lot of bowlers come and go. When you see bowlers like Rich or like Dom and people like that who have bowled in your events go on to do, you know, great things, does that give you a sense of sort of pride that you've been a big part of that?
Well, I've been a part of it. Whether it's a big part or not, then I don't know. Do you know what I mean? I've given them. I've provided a platform for them to go forward. Are you with me? Because anybody that can bowl it, you've bowled at Torquay, haven't you?
Yeah, a few times.
Yeah, so a lot of people say anybody that can bowl at Torquay can bowl anywhere because it wooden lanes down there. So yeah, I've given them a platform to go forward. You know, whether it's a sense of pride or not, do you know what I mean? It's a stepping stone. I've been a stepping stone for them, mate.
So obviously you run a lot of events throughout the year, and you have run a lot of events through the whole time you've been doing it. Is there any event that sort of sticks out to you as your favourite one to host, or a centre that you quite like hosting events at? might not be now, might have been 10 years ago, but
I don't know. I don't really know, mate. It's we had a lot of years and a good thing going at Firth Park Bowl at Sheffield before it closed, which was an old AMF bowl that was sold to MFA, and then MFA closed it, like they did a lot of their bowls. The Nationals last year I enjoyed, hard work, 2 weekends there, but I enjoyed that. And I just generally enjoy all the tournaments, man. You know what I mean? It's I can't single one out from the others. I enjoy doing all the tournaments. I'll tell you what, I'm always glad when they finished on the Sunday night and I collapse in a big heap. That fair enough, but that's showing me age.
You mentioned the transplant games. I mean, about 2 or 3 years ago, Ben's YBC was involved in hosting the transplant games up in the centre up here in Washington.
Yeah, you had the Worlds, didn't you?
Yeah, and I was involved with that. I mean, what struck me about that event is it was a great atmosphere, and there was people there who were not really bowlers, but there were people there who did bowl on a more regular basis, and there was a whole spectrum of different age ranges and different nationalities and that sort of thing. And I got the job of reading out the results, and I realised I had some talent for pronouncing foreign names. You just speak in a funny accent, and it sounds like you've got it right. So, but we did enjoy that, and I actually did a little bit of scorekeeping on that day as well. So, and I have a little bit of an inkling of the pressure that Jill's under when you're doing that sort of thing. So, it's that was a great event.
Well, we enjoy doing excuse me, the national one, because what happens is it's not just like we used with Worlds. It's not just the bowling. There's running and football and all sorts combined, in this week when they have the games. And what you get a lot of people that want to be involved in the games that have never picked a bowling ball up in their lives, but they turn up. They just bowl. With the Worlds, they bowled 3 games. They bowled series, didn't they? With the just the national ones, they bowled 2 games on 1 lane. They don't change lanes or anything like that. And they turn up, they bowl, they have a drink, and they go. And it's as simple as that. But as you said, there's no falling out. Everybody's happy. Everybody's joking and talking to each other. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. Yeah. We really enjoy doing it because we've got it this year. It's in Nottingham, and we're running it this year.
Yeah, it was interesting because of all the different nationalities there. I mean, a lot of them didn't speak a word of English. I mean, I remember having this conversation with some guy from Spain, and he was asking me questions, and I didn't speak a word of Spanish. He didn't speak English, but I sort of tried to know, and a bit of gesticulation was sort of managed to answer his questions. So that we don't get that in normal youth bowling. It was just something completely different for me.
No, we had that. I had that with the European ones when we did the Europeans in Oxford, but what I found were that a lot of the bowlers had got the phones, with the translator on, and they just shoved phone in front of your face. That's what question they wanted to it. It was very strange, very strange.
Yeah, I think we had a Spanish guy in the end with his, typing stuff into his phone and translating odd words and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, we had the same last year at the World Blinds in Birmingham because we got them obviously from all over the world, and they were at least the teams had got one person with them that could translate. You know what I mean? So it wasn't so hard. Mm-hmm. It was a strange tournament, that one.
Yeah.
I remember it when I bowled in France. I practically latched on to Heloise, as she was the only person that could speak French and English.
Trust it to be a woman you latched on to.
True to his form. What question I've often wondered, what do you do outside of bowling? When you're not bowling or doing something with bowling, what do you do?
Not a lot. Not a lot. We walk every morning, except when it's throwing it down with rain. We walk down onto the seafront and walk over to Paynton and round the seafront every day. Do about 7,000-8,000 steps a day. Then come back and work on tournaments.
Yeah. I mean, you live in a beautiful area of the country, because we've been down there a few times for the tournament in Torquay, and it was a place where we always like staying. We stayed in a hotel near to the seafront, and we could have a walk along the seafront. And I mean, we used to walk to the bowling alley, and it was about half an hour walk. Now you only had one bag in those days, not three. So I don't think we would walk now if we came down.
Yeah, true. Mind you, you wouldn't drive along seafront neither, because they're doing all the seafront in Torquay, and it's a pain in the bum at the moment.
Yeah,
I remember the bowling alley is on a massive hill, and I remember trying to pull my bowling bag up the hill. And I remember the first year we did it, we ended up having to pull up the hill. But the second year I did it, we strategically went a scenic route to get to the top of the hill and then come down.
yeah. No, nice area of the country is Torquay.
It is, mate. It is.
Yeah, but it's been great. I found a few things out about you that I didn't know, and often things I've wondered for years. But we hope that you and Jill are going to continue doing what you're doing for many more years. And we me and Ben and Ben's mum Elaine certainly all appreciate everything that you've done. And we've had a lot of interesting people on this podcast. We've had PBA bowlers and that sort of thing. But for me, because obviously I know you personally, then you one of the people I suggested to Ben sort of in the early days that we should get on this podcast, because I think your contribution to youth bowling in the UK is massive, and not just your contribution, but the fact is that you do this all off your own back. You're not paid for it. You do it for fun, and anybody who puts that much effort into something that benefits other people for fun, I think, should be widely recognised.
Thank you very much for that, Nigel. It's something, like you said, we do because we enjoy it. Once we stop enjoying it, then it'll be bye-bye and we'll leave. You know, it's as simple as that. And while there's people like Ben that I can make fun of, then I'll keep doing it. He didn't hear that one, I don't think, because he's not smiling. Yeah, it is.
Well, that's what keeps you entertained, isn't it? Making fun of people like Ben and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But,
do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make a 5-minute reel to put on Instagram of 5 minutes of me getting the mick taken out of me on this podcast.
That's just one tournament.
That's just one tournament.
One tournament. You can do it both ways.
Get your camera ready for when we go to Stroud, Nigel.
Oh, yes. The camera's always running, but as he said, every time I turn the camera on, he misses.
Well, that's what he wants on his podcast. Him missing every time, because he only seems to put on when he strikes, and you can tell it's the same strike every time because he just keeps coming back.
Yeah. I go to the toilet and he's had a turkey, and I'm thinking, well, how did that happen? And I get my camera out and he'll miss again. So it happens every time.
Oh dear, that's what we love him so much for, because he takes it.
Yeah,
takes all the ribby.
But thanks again, Brian. If you pass our regards on to Jill, and of course everything we said today goes for Jill in equal measure. We do appreciate your time coming on, and we'd like to thank everybody for watching this. This podcast is sponsored by ADR Wear, which is, as you can see, is what we're wearing here. And if you like what you've been seeing today, then like below and subscribe to the channel. We've got regular podcasts coming on. We've got more guests lined up, and we'll see you all next time. Bye.
Thanks a lot.